go ahead and get started. My name is Tristana Perkle. I'm the Executive Director of the School Garden Support Organization-Network, or the SGSO Network. And you are at the District-Led School Garden Programs Part 2 webinar, all about engaging your community. Part 1 of our webinar series focused on kind of more organization and management of district-led school garden programs. And when we say district-led school garden programs, what we're focusing on is school gardens that are run across a district with staff at the district office. So we know that that is a relatively, I guess, rare, but kind of growing group of school districts that are engaging, supporting, and running their school gardens. So we decided to have a webinar series focused on those districts. So today we've got Kaitlyn Scheuerman and Rebekka Henriksen. And if you want to go to the next slide, we've got a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded, and we'll be sharing a copy of the recording via email, as well as our recording library on our website. And we will be sharing a resource handout in the chat. I'm having some technical difficulties, some internet issues here at my house. So the resource handout isn't uploading to the cloud. So once that gets uploaded, I'll share it in the chat. If it for some reason doesn't come through, I'll share it via email afterward. But it's essentially a handout that will have all of the relevant links, everything that we're talking about here today. So you don't have to feel like you have to keep track of all of them. So everything that Kaitlyn and Rebekka share that might be relevant will be in that resource handout, as well as some links about the SGSO network. So this webinar is 75 minutes. We've got Q&A in the last 15 minutes of the webinar. As questions come up, please feel free to put them into the Q&A section. Q&A would be a little easier for us in the chat, so it doesn't get lost in your conversations, because we want you to feel free to chat with each other in the chat. So if you put your questions as they come up in the Q&A section of the Zoom webinar panel, then I will be organizing them and asking them at the end of the webinar. And then finally, we'd love to get your feedback on this webinar and also know what topics you'd like for future webinar programs. We're in the process of developing the rest of our webinars for the rest of the year. So we'd love to know what you'd like to hear. And if you do have to go early, this is, here, let me put this link into the chat. This is for the survey form. So next slide, please. So just a couple of announcements relevant to the School Garden Support Organization Network. We are part of the Growing School Garden Summit. We are one of the partners with the hosts, Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation and Life Lab, and we're so excited to share that the dates for the 2024 summit have been announced, March 15th through 18th. We are growing the number of folks who can attend, I believe to 500 folks. Last year was 400. So rest assured, there will be more spots than there were in previous years, or in the previous year. So if you weren't able to get a ticket last year, registration will be open this fall. Next slide. But what is currently open are our scholarship applications. We are focusing on BIPOC folks for our scholarships to attend the Growing School Garden Summit, but we're also open and interested in providing scholarships to folks of any type of identity that is underrepresented in the garden-based education world. So those scholarship applications are due June 28th. And then next slide, we also have our call for presenters open. So this year, or next year, I should say, in 2024, we are hosting a lot of different ways that folks can share on the summit. We've got workshops, and then we've got lesson and cooking demonstrations, as well as short courses, so a little bit longer of sessions. And then short lightning talks, so about 20 minutes or less, and field trips. So if any of those apply to you and you would like to submit a presentation proposal, those are due a month later, July 31st. Next slide. If you'd like to learn all about the Growing School Garden Summit and specifically about scholarships and call for presenters, we are actually having a webinar tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So come join us if you'd like to learn more. So this webinar is results and kind of came out of the School Garden Support Organization Leadership Institute. So this is an amazing week-long opportunity for about 24 organizations and about 50 people to come together, leaders of school garden support organizations or entities that support multiple school gardens, at a training week led by Life Lab and Whole Kids Foundation. This year, there was a focus on district-led school garden programs. And so as a result, we're doing some webinar series to highlight the learnings of the Leadership Institute. So as I shared last month, we did part 1 of district-led school garden programs, where we featured 3 other school districts focusing more on kind of the organization and management side. And today you're hearing from 2 other districts who will be sharing more about the community engagement side. In addition to, if you want to go to the next slide, focusing on district-led aspect, or the kind of the programmatic aspect of district-led programs, we're also going to be sharing from the SGSO Leadership Institute participants another webinar next month, all about how to structure impactful school garden professional development. So that'll be June 21st at 11 a.m. Pacific, and again, highlighting attendees of the Leadership Institute. So be sure to check that out. And also be sure to check out the Leadership Institute application will be coming out in the next month or so for the 2024 Institute. So with that, I believe I'm going to pass it off to Kaitlyn to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tristana. So yeah, as Tristana said, my name is Kaitlyn Scheuerman, and I work for the Waukee Community School District here in Iowa. So you can see there on the slide, we have 16, soon to be 17 buildings in our district, and a little over 13,000 students in our district. Right now we have 5 schools that have gardens, and district staff supporting the school gardens. You're looking at them. This is just me. And we don't have any paid school garden coordinators, but we do have teachers at each building that support the garden efforts at their buildings. There we go. So a little map here of our growing sites in our district. So we are the fastest growing district in the state of Iowa. So we do have 18 buildings that serve students. So 16 of those are K-12. 1 is a pre-K building, and it also hosts our Community Transition Center, or 12 plus program. And then we also have the WILT, which is our building that hosts our APEX program. It's called the Waukee Innovation and Learning Center. So as I said, we're about a little over 13,000 students. Our free and reduced percentage is just over 20%. And you can see our sites there on the map. So 5 outdoor garden sites, and we will be adding a site at Radiant Elementary next year. We have 2 container garden sites, which are early care, daycare sites. And then we have 5 hydroponic sites at buildings across the district. So we, as a farm to school program, developed a purpose statement this year. This was a shift for our program, as we had a vision statement in the past, but we felt it was really important to transition to a purpose statement, because we don't really have an end destination or like that final vision of what farm to school looks like, but really this underlying purpose of what we do in farm to school and why we do this work. So I won't necessarily read it to all of you, but you can see it there on the slide. And then we do also have a mission statement, because there is still those tangible pieces of the work that we do. So our program will provide opportunities for all students in the community to discover agriculture through interactive experiences, connect to the local food system, deepen their curiosity of the natural world, and discover how to nourish their bodies so they can thrive beyond the years they spend in school. So in the development of our purpose statement and our mission, we really found these underlying values in our farm to school work. So with our farm to school work, we are innovative, we are community building, which means that we're sharing and spreading the knowledge that we gain through this work, creating a sense of belonging and believing in possibilities and hope for the future. So really believing that the seeds that we're planting today in the minds of students will sprout, bloom, and grow fruit for their futures. So this is a snapshot of our farm to school program. So we have three really key focus areas in our program, and that's nutrition education, hands-on agricultural experiences for students, and local purchasing. So within each of those areas, we do lots of different things, and I'll talk a little bit about some of those pieces today as we go through. We do have a district farm to school committee and lots of sectors that are represented on that committee. So I've listed out some of them here on the slide. And this group was really key in developing our definition of what local means as far as local purchasing. They helped to create the vision and then the purpose statement for our farm to school program. They voted on logos for our program that were designed by Apex students, which are high school level students. They've continued to provide feedback on our work and opportunities for partnerships with their organizations. So something we are doing this for next year is that we will be splitting up our committee list, because we have lots of folks that are on our list that are really just wanting updates about what's happening in farm to school. So they want to get the meeting minutes and be able to read them and keep up on what's happening in farm to school, but they're not necessarily able or interested in attending the meetings. So we will be shifting from kind of our monthly committee meeting, which has turned into kind of a lot of updates about projects that we're working on, to more monthly meetup calls. That will be geared a little bit more towards teachers and staff in our buildings, where they can really hop on, they can listen, they can share, they can do some problem solving with each other. And then everyone on the committee list who really just wants the updates will be transitioned to more a newsletter email list. So I'll talk a little bit about how we bring in partnership kind of throughout all of these pieces of our farm to school program. So we'll start with nutrition ed and hands-on experiences. So these are our 4 outdoor learning spaces we have right now. Our 5th one is being installed this week, and then our 6th one will be installed next school year. So partnership with our outdoor garden spaces comes from a variety of places. So we have our PTOs that help provide some funding for spaces. And then we also have parent volunteers who really help with maintenance of the garden spaces and getting produce to the kitchens or to our high school kitchen for our summer food service program. Our operations department has been incredibly supportive of our farm to school work, and they've helped in a variety of ways. So whether that's advising teachers on site locations that might work best at their building, delivering compost and mulch. They were bringing out some of their equipment, like their skid loaders and some other things, to the site that's being installed this week, and allowing students to actually get some hands-on experience like in heavy equipment. So really cool, and really just very supportive of the work. And then we have our teacher teams that this would not be able to happen without having the teacher teams at each building. And the teacher teams really help with coordinating those parent volunteers, kind of determining when we're first installing a space, really determining, what is this space going to mean for our building, and leading the efforts, getting kids out in the garden space. I mean, lots and lots of ways that teachers are involved. Seed starting, that's another thing that a lot of them do. And then we have our Apex program, which is a high school advanced professional experience program. where community partners are paired with student groups at Apex to complete various projects. So actually, all of the beds in these pictures, except for Timberline, were built by Apex students. So that has been a really great partnership to have Apex really involved in the construction of our spaces. Timberline space was built by students as well, but it was built by the industrial tech class at that building. So lots of student involvement in the construction of these spaces as well. And then as far as our indoor garden spaces, we do have PTOs that do help provide some funding, more so to a lesser extent with the indoor spaces right now. We have had parent volunteers who have been helping with maintaining the outdoor garden spaces, also help with harvesting and maintaining those indoor tower garden spaces as well. Again, the teacher teams really get kids involved using these different grow setups at each building. And our curriculum leaders have been super supportive of this work too. They really help encourage the use of the towers, especially since these systems can be operating all school year long. The outdoor gardens, we love them and they're beautiful, but being in Iowa, we have a short growing season and most of that happens when kids are not in school. So we try to do our best to utilize the little bit of spring and the little bit of fall that we get. But the indoor spaces are really great because kids can be engaged all year long. And then our Apex program has been incredibly supportive with helping provide plant starts for the towers and helping to troubleshoot and problem solve. Down in the picture on the bottom left, the lady on the left, her name is Cindy Snell, and she's actually the National Ag Teacher of the Year this year for Iowa. Like, so excited. She's incredibly supportive of our work. And she teaches our animal and vet science class at Apex, and then also the global food systems class. So she is super invested in our farm to school work and just incredibly supportive and gets her students out doing things with farm to school all the time. So now I'll talk a little bit more specifically about Apex. So it is an advanced professional experience program, and we have partnered with them on a multitude of projects with our farm to school work. So these students designed our farm to school logo. They've built nearly all of our raised bed garden spaces. They've created and delivered Think of Farmer bags. They've read books to ag-related books to kids during Read Across Iowa Week. They coordinate a virtual cooking workshop for their students that are in Apex in partnership with Iowa State's Culinary Food Science program. They grow plant starts. They've helped with delivering and cleaning supplies for our egg hatching project that we're just wrapping up for the year. They've built worm compost bins for classrooms. They've taught water quality. The list goes on and on. Like, they do so much work with us and have really just expanded the capacity of our work. We do also utilize school to work and dietetic interns quite a bit. So our school to work program is a district program where we get a high school senior intern from November until May. So we've had 3 interns now from that program. And then dietetic interns, kind of depends on the year. Sometimes I have several dietetic interns and sometimes I haven't had as many. But the dietetic interns are really great at helping to facilitate nutrition education, create those marketing materials, and really just help with other aspects of program implementation. So partnership in our Farm to Summer program and our Picnic and Play, which Picnic and Play is our name for our summer food service program. So we partner heavily with ISU Extension, Dallas County Public Health, and Eat Greater Des Moines, and a few others for specifically nutrition education activities at our sites. We do have other kinds of programming that happens at Picnic and Play as well, but it's not all nutrition education focused. But these partners have really been specifically partnered with to do the nutrition education in conjunction with Farm to Summer. So our school gardens partner with us over the summer months, and almost all of the produce that comes out of our school gardens during the summer comes into Picnic and Play. So volunteers will harvest the produce off, bring it to our high school kitchen, which is where we do all of the prep for our summer food service program. And our staff there will wash it, prepare it, and package it down into smaller sample sizes for our participants at our summer sites to taste. So in 2022, we had 109 pounds of produce donated from our school gardens into our Picnic and Play program. And then in 2022, we did add another partner with our Farm to Summer work. And she is actually one of our former middle school teachers who left teaching to pursue growing microgreens. And so she came out to our sites several times last summer and did direct nutrition and plant education activities about microgreens specifically at our sites. And then our dietetic interns did some activities around lettuce, which was the statewide Farm to Summer feature vegetable. And then we also have Dallas County Ag in the Classroom, who our Ag in the Classroom coordinator can't always come out to our sites during the summer, but she was able to provide us some information to tie into the tasting and the work our dietetic interns did. So as far as professional development, we've partnered with Master Gardeners back in very beginning of 2020 to host a School Garden 101 class for teachers. So they really got some hands-on experience with learning about school gardens, all the steps needed to install a school garden. So that is the bottom picture there. And then our other opportunity we've been able to offer as far as professional development is our Plant the Seed Day, which we just had our second event back in April. And so we were able to bring in 9 of our community organizations that have really partnered with our Farm to School program. And we ask them to just bring their resources and their programs that they have, and then teachers can come and just kind of go through like a vendor fair and be able to visit with those partners, talk directly with them. And we've had lots of great connection come out of that. Getting our preschool space installed was one connection that came out of that. We've had teachers that bring in those programs to their classroom and are able to get that benefit from the event. So the teachers get to visit the booths. They had like a punch card, and then they got to put in for a drawing for some different Farm to School related prizes that were funded with our Farm to School, USDA Farm to School implementation grant. And then we've also partnered in with our elementary science curriculum team to really deepen that connection of Farm to School with specifically elementary science curriculum now, but I think teachers are seeing those other ways that it connects into lots of different places in curriculum. So we subcontracted with Next Step Adventure, which is a local nonprofit, to develop out specific Farm to School lessons for each grade level that directly connect to standards. So there's a screenshot there on the slide of the one of the lessons that they helped to develop out. So we gave them our progress report statements and the Common Core objectives, which is NGSS for us. And then they took those, put them right on there so teachers know how they connect, and then developed out that lesson. So then as far as local procurement and how we partner in that realm, we've partnered with local producers in a couple of different ways. So during the pandemic, we couldn't get our regular name brand yogurt. So we reached out to an Iowa producer that we had used for Iowa Local Food Day, which is a once a year event, and got yogurt from them. And then we were able to start purchasing from them on a more regular basis. So a really great way that something we only did once a year now has become its own relationship, and we do purchase from them. They do biweekly deliveries directly to our schools. So it's a really great partnership relationship for us. And so then also this year, we were approached by a local farm that's in Dallas Center, which is like 10-15 minutes away from us here in Waukee, to really start to explore some options for a pre-cooked local pork and beef options for schools. So they came to us and asked, what would be a usable product? And so we provided some feedback on the typical pack sizes we use, the pricing that we get, which we know they won't be able to match that pricing, but at least to kind of help give them a ballpark of like what schools are used to paying for those kinds of products. And then we did conduct a taste test with our students once they had a product developed. So they did a pre-cooked sausage crumble and a pre-cooked chorizo crumble. And so we did a huevos con chorizo taste test at our high school building, or one of our high school buildings, back during National School Breakfast Week. And then we have, Iowa has a local food for schools grant right now. It's a large multi-million-dollar grant. And within that, there are some pilot projects happening around the state. And so we partnered in with a processing pilot project to do some recipe testing with some of the product that's coming out of that project, and just be providing some input on usability and quality and some of those different aspects that are important to schools. We also partner heavily with our food hub, which is farm table delivery. They are the one that primarily services the Des Moines area, and we utilize them the most, but we have also worked with the Iowa Food Hub, which is in Northeast Iowa, and then Organic Greens, which is out in more Eastern Iowa, through a statewide hub to hub project, which is another local foods initiative to connect the food hubs in our state. And so the food hub provides that partnership of aggregating supply, which is so critical for us being a little bit bigger district, at least bigger in the context of Iowa, where we have lots of teeny tiny districts. So that aggregation is really important for us to be able to purchase from one food hub and not have to source from 3 or 4 different farmers. They help with forecasting availability of product. They help answer questions about quantities. So when I'm planning helping with planning the cook shop, and I need to know how many individual onions are in a 42-pound case, they will go and count out a 42-pound case of onions and tell me about how many onions I can expect to be in there. They really provide that additional layer of food safety by doing the on-farm checks and making sure that farmers have food safety plans and certifications in place, which really takes something off our plate as a food service operation and makes that local purchasing easier. And they provide specific information about the origin of a product. So we can go to them and say, what do you know about this farmer? So we can make sure that we're putting it on our signage and sharing the story of where those food items are coming from. So I would say partnership is so critical to our farm to school work, and we would not be nearly as successful or effective if it weren't for the partnerships and relationships we've developed in our community. And I always say we all know some things, but we can't know everything. And that's where partnership really comes in and really enhances the work that we're doing. So I'll pass it off to Rebekka now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebekka Henriksen. I'm the Farm to School project manager for the Schenectady City School District. And we are a Title I public school district in Eastern New York State. We have 17 schools in our district, plus a city as our campus program. We have about 10,000 students or so in our district. Right now, we have 15 school gardens, district staff supporting school gardens. It's mostly me, but I do get some support from a colleague, our STEM curriculum director, and our food services director. They kind of switch off in supporting me. And at this time, there are no paid school garden coordinators, sadly. Okay, next slide, please. So just some pictures of me in the garden with the kids and some of our partners. What's unique, I think, about my program is rather than being in food services, I'm actually in the Department of Innovation, Equity, and Engagement. And I'm going to be talking a lot about engagement, especially as it pertains to communities. Next slide, please, Kaitlyn. So just about us, our vision, I'm kind of required to post this when I present, but I think the biggest thing to know about us is that we equity and collaborative learning are really at the forefront of our values, and everybody counts, everybody learns. That is our tagline, and we take that very serious. Again, the fact that I'm in the Office of Equity and Engagement really, I think, speaks to that. Next slide. So these are our pillars, and I just want to highlight there, again, partnerships with families and communities. So this has been a pillar of our district for about 10 years now, starting with our previous superintendent. But our new superintendent, he's been on the job about 2 years. He has really put community and community relationships to the forefront of all of our efforts. And we actually have full-time family engagement and community engagement specialists who actually work with me as colleagues in my department. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more about us. So as we are a mid-sized city, we are about 70,000 here in Eastern New York State. Again, we have around 10,000 students. So majority of our city's population, while adult, we have over 10% are kids of school age. Many different languages and cultures. We're a global majority city and a global majority district. The majority of our students, over 80%, live below poverty level. We are a universal free breakfast and free lunch district. If you drill down into the data, it's actually more like 85% really, and we are food insecure. Our city suffers from food apartheid. We have one grocery store in our city for 70,000 people. It is inaccessible for large swaths of our community, cut off by a freeway. It can take about a 2-hour trip to get to that grocery store. So most of our neighborhoods are served by bodegas and convenience stores. Many of our campuses are used as community green spaces. Our campuses are fairly large for the most part. We have a lot of green space. And so all of our gardens are really de facto community gardens. We do have a couple that are gated or in building courtyards, but the majority of our 15 gardens are ungated and open to the community. So this is just some of our farm to school vision. This is a work in progress, but you know, I don't want to read it all off to you, but the main foci are really so we focus on the 3 C's, which anyone familiar with farm to school knows of: cafeteria, classroom, and community. Again, that community piece, which really is central. So but a big part of our programming, particularly as it pertains to school gardens, is bringing community in, creating community within classrooms and buildings, really giving our kids the opportunity to be engaged in hands-on learning, project-based learning, and also give them greater access to nourishing foods, fresher produce, etc. Okay, next slide. Oh, and this one is animation. I got fancy with this one, and it's the only one I got fancy with because then I ran out of energy. So you can, so again, I talk about community within and between classrooms, so team learning. So I do a lot of cool projects with kids, everything from raising and tagging monarchs that we collect from our monarch waste station garden in the summer, and then bringing in the fall for 5th graders to tag. I do a lot of solar energy lessons connected to school gardens. So kids love that. Group projects, building solar ovens there. I have a group of kids to then harvest from the garden to make pizzas with and cook them. And then we have schoolyard sugaring, which I do on 5 of our campuses now, and we try to connect classrooms to each other through that program. So often older classrooms being paired with younger classrooms, and they tap trees with me, they collect the sap with me. I process it in my backyard. I live in the community, so I'm around the corner from one of the school buildings. And then I bring it back, and we have often school-wide pancake breakfast or vanilla ice cream tasting with maple syrup on top, and all of that. You can do the next animation. So we talked about community within and between classrooms, and then community within school buildings. So I like to do school-wide events that are happening in the school day. Not all of our students can get to school after school hours, so I try to do a lot of stuff during school days. So something that I've been doing for the last few years is Plant a Seed Day. So that's a national thing that happens. I don't really do the national program. I do it later. I believe the national day is usually in March sometime. I usually do this the first week of April. And I have multiple stations with community partners. So I'll have Cornell, doing like seed bombs with kids. I'll have our soil and water guy doing vermicomposting. I will be planting seeds with kids. There'll be someone else doing capillary action on plants. So they visit all the stations, they rotate through, the entire school goes through. So we'll get 500 kids in. Most of our elementary schools are around 500 kids, our middle schools around 700 or so. We haven't done it on secondary level because we have giant high schools that have like thousands of kids in them, so it won't quite work for that. But this is a great event, and what I love about this event is that it gets kids really excited about their school garden, and they really want to get out there, and it also gets them growing at home. They bring seedlings home, or they bring seeds they planted home, and I get all these wonderful pictures from families showing me where they planted it, on their porch, on their balcony, in a pot, or in their backyard. It's really awesome. I think there's more animation. So community within our district, connecting faculty to one another and their classrooms. So this year I began a Seeding Schenectady initiative, and I was inspired to do this. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but by a program in Louisiana called Seeds to Success. And I did share a link of that in the resource page that will be shared with you. But this is an online forum for our faculty to connect to one another. I post lessons and resources, and you'll hear more about that in a little bit. And last animation. And then I do a lot of special events where I'm bringing people out into community spaces, like food activists and authors, for instance, Farmer Will Allen. And then special events at buildings after hours and in the school garden spaces. You see one of my favorite students there getting ready to smash a pumpkin for a pumpkin smash at his school after Halloween. So I'm a great believer in, we are a district focused on community. I want our community connected to our gardens in a real way, and everything I do, I feel strong community leads to strong schools and vice versa. Okay, next slide. All right, so I talked a little bit about classroom communities. So a lot of our community events here, you see our classroom community projects. So you see the maple sugaring there. Those are kids, kindergartners and 5th graders collecting sap during our sugaring. I do a lot of 3 sister feasts around our buildings. So I take outgoing 3rd graders who are going into 4th grade the following year. We do a unit in 4th grade in New York State for Indigenous peoples. So they plant a 3 sister garden with me. I come back in the fall, the kids, the fourth graders now, they harvest it, they process the food, and we usually have multiple classrooms joining together in that fourth grade cohort to do a Three Sisters feast where we cook together and eat together. I go around with a little mini cider press during apple cidering time, and I go into those classrooms and I press apples. I'll usually bring in older classrooms to help the little ones. There I am at the pre-K class. So I had a fifth grader come in and help them press because it's really hard work. And then we, at one of our campuses, we've been planting an apple orchard over the last 5 years. So I'll bring 200 kids through, all different ages, coming together to plant those trees, and also community members come. Our goal is to build eventually a community orchard that the surrounding neighborhood as well as our students can harvest from and do events like cider pressings and things in. Okay, next slide, please. There, I did get fancy with the animation without knowing it. I don't know, maybe can you hit another? There you go. All right. So this is that Plant a Seed Bid Day event I told you about. So I went into that a lot. You see some of the stations, and of course the artwork was created by kids. We also this year at one of our buildings, we've started school-wide composting where we're composting all cafeteria waste, including meat and dairy, and it's going to the Schenectady Community Compost Project. So I've been partnering with our Cornell Cooperative Extension. They have a unit, Schenectady County Recycles, just fully focused on composting recycling. Huge partnership there. Our Soil and Water Conservation District, who's a huge partner for me, our county sustainability office, and a local urban farm who I partner with a lot. So they've recreated on one of the urban farm sites this 3-bay concrete aerated solar powered system that can handle the hundreds and hundreds of pounds of waste just one school creates every week. And what's been really cool about this project is it's getting everyone in our community really interested in composting. We now have other community compost sites that Cornell is managing, and the kids in this school are so hyped up and so excited to be composting. And the compost created in that system will go back to our school gardens in our district as well as on the urban farms. We also do a lot of art making in our gardens, and I have so that beautiful mural that's higher up with like the 4 seasons in the garden, that was created at one of our schools by the art teacher with the garden club there. And then you see these sunflower pictures there. That was with a community partner, Create Community Studios. They do a lot of social, emotional, therapeutic art. They went into all the classrooms at one of our buildings, had the kids generate ideas about what the garden meant to them. And we've now been creating murals. And our goal is to have school community created murals at all our school garden spaces where we have the room to do that, even if it's just on the door of the building that's into the garden. And that mural has begun to be painted, and we actually did it during a school dance, and so families could come and paint together with their kids, which was really fun. Okay, next slide. All right, so here's our faculty community. So if you, and it is shared in the resources, but I was at Farm to School conference, and this wonderful Farm to School representative from Louisiana talked about their Seeds to Success program. They have a beautiful website, and it's really to get the state of Louisiana growing, but so they have kind of a section that's for anyone who wants to plant and grow food particularly. And then it has a whole section just for faculty from throughout the state. And you can register and you get sent a seed starting kit if you're a faculty person. And then you have all these lessons and resources that you can pull on. And it's an amazing, beautiful thing. I'm trying to get New York State convinced to do it statewide, but I thought I would start it within our district at least. So I created a Google Classroom. That was kind of the easiest way for me to do it. I sent out, information to principals, and I had 50 faculty or so register from around the district. And they all got a seed starting kit. So I had, seeds and the little seed starting peat moss starting cups and pots, and I gave them instructions, printed out instructions about how to start their seeds. I gave them a little vermicompost with it. And then I connected them to this Google Classroom where I continually am posting resources, lessons, lesson plans, videos, read alouds, just all kinds of stuff like that. And teachers can comment, they can share pictures, they can troubleshoot. I'm also trying to start a Facebook group. The Facebook group wasn't, I'm going to be honest, I didn't have many teachers join it. I think a lot of our faculty this year are a little bit, we had 2 new curriculum introduced this year, and they're just working with a lot, but I'm hoping that next year we'll be more successful with that space as well. It's a private Facebook group. And also we're starting in the fall, we're going to have regular Google Meets, probably bi-weekly, and they'll be, of course, optional, but folks can just get together, troubleshoot, share best practices, share fun lessons, successes, challenges, all that good stuff. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, there you go. Okay, so again, bringing community in now. So bringing the larger community in. So this year in Schenectady, we started our community school model. So many of you might be familiar with that. That's really when a school provides services for the families, whether it's connecting them to supports that they need, whether it's having a food pantry, a clothing closet, medical clinics, community rooms, parenting groups for parents of neurodivergent children, all of that. That's all happening in our community schools. 5 of our 11 elementary schools are currently community schools. And eventually all of them will be, and we'll also be turning our middle schools into community schools, just to meet the needs of our community. And we see school gardens and farm to school programming as being really an essential piece of all this. We're going to be doing nutrition lessons in the gardens. We're going to be doing cooking lessons. We're going to be bringing, I'm going to be going around working with various family members who come into the community room, doing workshops on home growing and home processing of foods and things like that. All right, next slide, please. All right, so these are just some of the festivals. You see there's a little cute picture of the mural that just got started. So again, that's all from kids' artwork. So we try and do fall harvest festivals around our buildings. We try to feature local farm cider, apples, and pumpkins. Produce from school gardens and local urban farms are distributed free of charge to attendees. We ask community partners to come in and vendor and have vendor tables, but with giveaways. I'm always trying not to charge our families. A lot of our families are just so low income that it really places a burden on them, and they will not show up if there's a cost. So we've given out a tremendous amount of fresh harvested food at these events, and the kids have a great time. And especially since during the height of the pandemic, you know, there were so few events happening, we've had really big turnout because people are really hungry to again connect to one another. We've started this pumpkin smash. We started just at one school this year. Next year we're going to do it probably at our high school and invite just as many people who want to attend in. We distributed free pumpkin bread and cider, and we had people bring their gourds and pumpkins, whether it's from, you know, their seasonal decorations or Halloween or whatever, and they could smash them. And then our soil and water guys took them away to compost. And we're now going to give out bags of finished compost to families who show up to help on garden work days in June. I talked about the mural. So I don't need to say more about that. And our community orchard, again, the school orchard is really was planted in with the goal of it being a community orchard with community members helping our students plant and helping maintain the orchard as well. Because for those of you who know, maintaining an orchard is a full-time job in and of itself once it gets big enough. Ours is only 20 trees right now, so we don't need to worry about it. And all those trees, by the way, were donated either by our Re-Tree Schenectady group, which is a group dedicated to putting trees in urban landscapes, or our Soil and Water. And I really want to recommend, if you don't have a relationship with your local soil and water conservation district, please make one. From ours, I get free topsoil, free compost, free mulch, and many free trees and native plants. So they're an amazing, amazing organization. And they have lots of grants from the state that, you know, they have to spend them and help the community. All right, next slide. All right, and if you could just press it again, so my words come up. Thank you. So I've worked with a lot of our community partners to sponsor authors and food activists to come in, and really with the goal of supporting the entire city's goals around becoming food resilient, and create greater food access in our city. So I brought the amazing urban farming pioneer and kind of statesman of the movement, especially in the United States, Farmer Will Allen, amazing human being. He did a 2-day residency that in our district, so working with students, but he also did a community talk free of charge to the public. And he did a tour of Schenectady Urban Farms, of one of their sites that was live streamed across the state through New York Ag in the Classroom. And then we had Tony Hillary just come, for those of you who know him from maybe Humans of New York. So his amazing organization, Harlem Grown. So he did a 2-day residency around his book. And what was cool is we did a whole community visioning session around that, where second graders, he went into their classrooms, they drew and wrote about what their community currently looks like. And then we talked a lot about gardening and nature, and we read his book. And then the next day he came back in and they drew what they wanted their community to look like. So it was what it is like to what they would like it to be. And it was amazing what the difference. It went from being like convenience stores, gas stations, fast food, to being gardens, trees, waterfalls, castles. It was really beautiful. And he also did a community talk at our Schenectady County Public Library. And at both Will Allen and Tony Hillary, we gave out free books. We gave out free books to whoever attended. That's really important to us, again, to be giving, supporting our community. Something else that's really fun, and if you don't do this already, I really recommend, this is a great way to meet people, make partnerships, and bring more community members connected into your gardens, is do a seed exchange. So I did one this year. This was the second year that Sikkim Food Pantry was doing it. They managed Schenectady Urban Farms, and they invited me to participate. It was amazing. So I had a table for farm to school in our district, and we brought seeds, and there were thousands of seed packets, and we exchanged them. We had community members come in, exchange. We did mini workshops. So like I did a mini 15-minute workshop just on growing microgreens at home. Other people did other stuff. It was really, really great. And then another thing this time of year, I've already started doing this. We, whenever there's a school dance or an end of year celebration that's often outdoors, I am set up in the school gardens, or I have PTO or teacher champions set up in school gardens, giving away seedlings and seed packets to attending families. And that's a great way too to get volunteers signed up to care for those gardens in the summer, by the way. Okay, next one. Yep, so this is just my ending slide, I believe, but I really want to emphasize sharing. So, you know, of course, we want to encourage students to share, to work together, right? By working, sharing, learning together, they become that classroom community, classrooms learning, celebrating together. We create that school community, which I think we all want. Faculty learning and connecting, whether create that district community, and then inviting families and neighbors in creates a broader connected community. And, you know, I think Generosity, I'm a Buddhist. There's a saying in my tradition, generosity is the virtue that produces peace. And I'm a great believer that anyone who partners with me, I want that partnership to benefit them as well. I don't want to just be the taker. I have wonderful, generous partners who give me a lot. Like I'm almost embarrassed what they give me. And I feel like anything I can do to get them numbers that they need to justify their grants, to get their name out there into the community, to drive, CSA members to Schenectady Urban Farms or whatever, bringing these authors and food activists into the community so the greater community gets more knowledge and the partners get more attention. That is really, really important to me. And again, that strong, resilient community will really make a strong, resilient school garden and school. So I think that's it. Yeah. So on to Tristana, who's going to do the Q&A.
Wow, thank you both so much. That the amount of partnerships that you have in your district is just incredible. I don't know how you all keep track of it both. I don't know how you both keep track of it all. Thank you so much for sharing. So now we'll be going into our Q&A portion of our webinar. So we'll be going 15 minutes past the hour. Absolutely understand if you need to head at the top of the hour, but we've got some questions already, and please keep sharing in the Q&A section of your Zoom panel as your questions come up. So Rebekka and Kaitlyn, if you don't mind putting your videos back on so that we can see y'all while you're answering your questions, and I will remove the spotlights or allow you both to be spotlighted there. There we go. So I'm just going to kind of go back and forth as the questions came through. Kaitlyn, are the teachers that support the gardens at each school paid extra for their extra time?
So we were able to do stipends last school year, and then we had a USDA planning grant prior to this. And so we did offer stipends the year prior as well. However, this year, we felt we had some needs in other places with our grant dollars, and our district does not have like a budget for farm to school at this time, or additional funds for stipends right now. So even though we still had some grant dollars this year, we wanted to make sure that we were getting the gardens the supplies and the things that they need. And we also were having some transition in a couple of the teams, with teachers that are leaving the district or just needing to transition their focus a little bit. So we wanted whoever comes in to be coming in because they want to be there, not because like, oh, I can get an extra stipend for doing some extra, a little bit of extra work. So while I would love to compensate them for their time, right now we just we don't have that built into the budget anywhere. But I think as it grows, I can see maybe there's a potential where things can happen. So.
Totally get the nature of funding, and that we'd all like to have more and pay all of our amazing educators, teachers, everyone, staff involved for supporting our children. Rebekka, do the open to the community gardens have a joint use, shared use policy in place that enables this, or is it simply an informal agreement? Yeah, maybe let's start with that question.
So it's not of anything formal. It's more that the gardens are there on the campus, they're ungated, and the community is using those campuses as green space. And technically, I mean, there's signage, not even on all of our campuses, but that says, don't use during school hours. And then if you are here after school hours, you need to please leave by dusk, kind of like a public park. But we don't have any formal thing in place.
Okay, cool. And then I think there was a follow-up question, so I think it'd be relevant just to ask this. Now, does the city, parks, or other agencies support the out of school time use?
Oh my gosh, I wish they did, but no, because it's district property, we are expected to, be the ones in charge of it, and the city is not involved.
Great, thank you. I think this question was for you, Kaitlyn, but it might be relevant for you as well, Rebekka. So feel free to pop in as well. Given that PTOs at different schools can have vastly different capacity, do you have mechanisms in place for ensuring equitable access for all kids in your district? Do school sites opt in only if they have the resources or interest?
Yeah, so PTOs they're interesting. So everybody is a little bit different. We don't have like really a set like guidance right now, because we only have a few sites and everybody does things a little bit differently as far as like how they partner with their PTOs. I would say just kind of generally, we are very lucky. We do have very generous PTOs that raise lots of money for lots of different things. And I mean, as I said, in our demographics, we are a pretty low free and reduced district, which is kind of a double-edged sword. We do have like families who are very generous and who will donate things for us. But then at the same time, it does make it very hard for us to apply for grants. So we do have to kind of like rely on those donations and those types of things to get things done, especially as we're ending our implementation grant. That's something we've been looking at is like, okay, beyond the farm to school grant, like where do those funds and those the money, where does the money come from to just fund those year over year types of supplies. So yeah, we don't really have like specific guidance in place. I would say the buildings where we do have gardens right now actually are probably our lowest free and reduced buildings in the district. So that's, I think, part of why PTOs have been a really good partner, because we have just families that are more able to donate and PTOs that just have a little bit more funding. Yeah, that might become more of a question for us, like as we have other buildings that want garden spaces, but maybe their PTOs do look a little bit different. That might be something we have to address a little bit more in the future.
I'll just speak because I think my district's a bit different, and our PTOs are, especially with COVID, they really kind of all died. There are not the people died, but that they just they really went defunct, the PTOs, and they were already kind of struggling to begin with because it's just difficult. Most of our parents or family caregivers work. A lot of them are low income. A lot of them have transportation issues. So we've never really been able to rely on PTOs for any kind of regular fundraising. I mean, certain buildings are different. It really kind of depends. But so it's one of the reasons why I lobbied very hard for my position to become full-time, because again, with equity being a real focus of our district, I said, if we really want to be able to offer this programming more than at just a few schools, you need someone full-time, and we need to apply for these grants and all of that. So I was lucky that I got district support, because and I rely a lot on donations. I'm always soliciting donations from businesses, community partners, etc., because we don't have that kind of PTO, those PTO funds.
Great, thank you both. So Rebekka, I think you spoke to this just briefly, but wondering if you both have a food bank for your communities, and maybe you could speak a little bit to how those operate. Thank you.
Well, so we have in Schenectady, we have SICM, Schenectady Inner City Interfaith Community Ministry, and they have actually one of the best food pantries and banks in the region. and we partner very closely with them. They also run 3 urban farm sites in our city. Also at our community schools, at our middle schools, and at our high schools, we have food pantries. There's also a mobile food pantry that SICM, again, who we partner with, parks at various of our buildings, our school buildings, usually around pickup times and drop-off times, so that community members can access it. We also partner with our area green market that accepts EBT cards, and they do double up. So for every $1 on your SNAP card, you get an extra $1 in spending at the market. And they also do reduce subsidized food boxes if you do use SNAP. So we try and get those out to our families and information around that to our families.
Yes, and we do have food pantries in our area. So our district is a little unique because we actually cross boundaries into 4 different municipalities. So we have Waukee proper, but then we also have Urbandale, which is a suburb of the city of Des Moines, Clive, which is a suburb, and then West Des Moines, which is a suburb. Waukee is technically its own city. So even though like it butts up right against the suburbs, it is technically its own city in that regard. So it does make things kind of interesting as far as having to work with different municipalities, when you're trying to connect to different community resources. So I know like with our school gardens, when that produce is coming out and it's being donated, like I said, a lot of it does come back to our picnic and play program, which is great because then we can distribute it directly back to students that are in our district. But we love if it goes to the food pantry too. We always tell our school gardens, it doesn't really matter if it comes to us or if it goes to the food pantry, it's going to someone who needs it. So we do have, I know produce has been donated to Waukee Area Christian Services, which is technically in Waukee, and then Clive Community Services. But there's lots of different pantries in our area, and I'm not super aware of all of them. But I know those 2 are ones that like our garden produce has gone directly to those pantries. So, and then within our school buildings, we technically are not a community schools model, but we do offer some of those kinds of services. Like there's some places where there's clothing closets, and there's some. Our Waukee Schools Foundation recently partnered with an organization called Eat Greater Des Moines, which is, and then Hunger Free Dallas County. And so those organizations together have put community fridges in some of our secondary level buildings. So it's accessible mostly to students like before and after school, or athletes who need a little bit of extra food. And all of the items in those community fridges are food rescue. So Eat Greater Des Moines, a large piece of what they do as an organization is food rescue. So a lot of the items in those community fridges are food rescue items.
Great, thank you both for sharing. Rebekka, there's another question specifically around the gardens that open to the public. Have you had any issues with security? And are there any garden beds set aside for students only?
So yes, we have had some vandalism and some theft. I am kind of the mind that that's just part of it. It's just part of being a community space, and that the more I connect community members and students strongly to those spaces, that they will be less likely to damage them or steal from them. We are slowly getting security cameras set up in the gardens, as well as signs that say under surveillance, just so as a deterrent effect. And in terms of, so all the beds are for the students. So during the summer, people are allowed to harvest more heavily. The rule is if you're volunteering to help maintain the garden in the summer, you get to harvest. And I let people know what's ready to harvest, where it is. I give them recipes. And so that's what they do. To deter like a community member coming in who doesn't have a relationship, who's not volunteering, from harvesting everything, which did happen and has happened. We have signage now that says this is a school garden, pick to taste, not to take home. This produce is for our students. And during the course of the summer, usually 2 weeks before school starts, I even tell the volunteers only pick to taste now, not to take home, because students are coming back and we're going to start doing all of our classroom work in the gardens and bringing food in to cook and taste and all that. But again, vandalism is going to happen, and unfortunately, but you kind of have to take a deep breath and rebuild and renew. So.
Great, thank you. I honestly really appreciate that perspective or that approach, just recognizing that this is inevitable, just a part of being in the community, and kind of almost expecting it or working with it, looking at the root of it. Okay, so one last question. I think you both mentioned Master Gardener involvement. So just wondering, how the volunteer educators are involved in your school programs, so maybe a little bit more detail about those, if you do have Master Gardeners.
Well, I haven't had much success personally of Master Gardeners helping our gardens. I work closely with Cornell, but it's more their composting recycling arm. And then in the summer, I do work closely with them, but I'm paying Cornell educators to come into our summer enrichment program, do nutrition, do some ag related lessons, and I do field trips onto one of their sites, has kind of an urban farm on it. And I do field trips there where I'm paying an educator from Cornell to kind of lead some activities. A lot of Master Gardeners in my community are older. They live in the suburbs, and they have some biases where they are not very open at times, not uniformly, but I just find at times they're not necessarily completely open to working with our students. There's I think some preconceptions they have, which saddens me. So I would love it if we could partner closely with them. Also, our local Master Gardeners have a lot of other projects they work on. They have a big sale every year. They have a lot of greenhouse work they do. So I also think it's a matter of time. So that's just been my experience, but I know other areas have had really amazing success with Master Gardeners.
Yeah, I'll echo it. I mean, we've had some luck with our Master Gardeners here, but not as much as I would have hoped. So I myself am a Master Gardener, but in a different county. So I'm not as involved with the county that our district is actually located in. But our district, or the county that our district is a very active Master Gardener chapter. They do a lot of projects, like Rebekka said. So sometimes I do wonder if it is a little bit of time commitment, but we do have some parents in our district that are Master Gardeners. It's funny because I was at a class on campus at Iowa State and actually met a couple of them, and made some really cool connections with them. So I think there is the potential, and there's more opportunity. And from what I actually just had a meeting this morning, and it sounds like there is some interest in folks wanting to do more things with schools and school gardens. But I think it's a matter of going now and making that connection. Like I said in my presentation, we did partner with them to put on our School Garden 101 class for teachers. So I'm hoping to be able to partner again and be able to do another School Garden 101 class, because it was really beneficial, and the teachers who did it really liked it. And now a lot of them have like those teachers that participated didn't have a garden at their building at that time, but now a couple of them do. So I think even repeating it again would be super beneficial for them because they've kind of done it. And so they might have like more questions or be able to go more in depth because they actually have a space and have some experience with it. So we also have Polk. So we're in Dallas County, Iowa, but Polk County is right next to us, and that's where Des Moines is located. And their master gardener coordinator actually attended our Plant the Seed Day and was super excited about getting School Garden 101 going again. So I'm hoping to better like make that connection this next school year, even though they're not our county technically.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing. We'll go ahead and close out our time here. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. Join us for our future webinars. Again, that should actually say May 25th, which is tomorrow. We're chatting about and sharing all about the 2024 Growing School Garden Summit. If you want to learn about how to be involved. And then on June 21st, we have the last of our webinars highlighting participants, attendees of the SGSO Leadership Institute, focusing this time on how to structure impactful school garden professional development. Next slide, please. Thank you so much, Rebekka. Thank you so much, Kaitlyn, for being here, for doing everything that you do to support school gardens, to help them thrive in your district. I would love to be a kiddo going to school in one of your schools with all of the amazing community engagement support that you have. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for your questions. And thank you for all the work that you do to support garden-based education, even if it's just beginning at your school. You can find us at SGSO Network, sgsonetwork.org, and feel free to email me at any time. And then finally, we would love to get your feedback both on this webinar and any other topics that you'd like to hear about. Thanks again for being here, and hope you all have a great rest of your day.